Okay, so following the last tutorial, I sampled also kick, hi-hat and clap. I used the same exact techniques as my previous sampling tutorials for sampling kick, hi-hat and snare or clap. So go and watch those if you want to know how to do that. And so we've got some synths and some percussion. So I'm going to show you guys how to put that all on a Launchpad. So I've got my Launchpad right here. So I'm going to go into instruments and drag in just a simple drum rack, and let's see, desktop, so that's where I've got all my samples, and I'm just going to drag in the kick for now. And you can tell already, I need to arm this by the way, here, so it gets input from the Launchpad. So you can tell the harder I press the button, the higher the volume of the kick, and the lower, like the softer I press the button, the lower it is, and I don't want that, so I'm just going to set the velocity to 0, so it always plays at the same volume, and set the volume to 0 dB as well, and turn the snap off also, because I don't want it to snap at the end there. So, and if you're lazy and you don't want to change the volume for all of them, you can just right click and do, oh, it's not here yet, so I can just drag in the clap too. And now you can just paste values to other samples by doing this, copy value to siblings. See, and now it's 0, and look at the volume now, it's -12. I do it like that, it's -12 too, and then I can turn the snap off. But if you're lazy, you can just go into MIDI effects, drag a velocity before the drum rack, so all of the MIDI notes that reach the drum rack are affected, and drag the output low to 127, so it's always sending the maximum velocity. And just gonna, looks like there's a bit too much empty space there, so, and I'm gonna fade it a bit. Okay, that sounds good. And I'm gonna control and drag this here, so I've got the same settings already saved, and drag the hi-hat into the wave. So, okay, so we've got that. And now let's do the synths as well. I'm just going to drag the hi-hat here, and let's see, I want them kind of here. So, just drag another few. And let's have a look here actually. So this is definitely one sample, so you can already put that in. Let's put that here. Okay. Okay. This is kind of two samples, so let's Control E to separate them. And you can put this first one in like this. And you can right click and crop sample, so it's just that. And then do the same thing here, crop sample, so it makes a new sample for this one too. So you can tell it doesn't sound exactly smooth, so what we can do is, it's just because it ends abruptly, so we can add some reverb to these. And a good way of doing this is if you hit tab and go back to session mode, you can delete this audio too, and just click this button here. You can either preview your samples here, or you can actually just select them all and read what they are. So I want these 3, let's color them like that, and I'm going to Control G to group them. And what this allows me to do basically is, instead of having a reverb for every single one of these samples, which are basically kind of the same samples, I can put a reverb on the group so it affects all of them. So, and that's already way too much, so let's set it to high, dry wet. So dry wet is basically how much reverb effects is there. So let's say something like, that sounds good. And maybe a bit more tail. Tail is basically how long the decay lasts. Yeah, I don't know why, but that sounds really good. Actually, the size is basically how big the room is, so if you have a really small room, it'll sound like this, even small. And a really big room is. So Let's set it back to here. That sounds good. What we can also do is, I can tell these two have a tiny bit, you can't get the sampling always perfect, so they'll always be a bit dirty using these techniques. The best is to have stems, obviously. So you can just fade them in a tiny bit. And then this one too, so. Something like that. And what I also will do is I'm just going to sidechain them, and if you guys don't know what that means, is it basically makes them duck when I play the kick, so the volume will go down when the kick plays. So if you just drag in a compressor, click this arrow here and turn compression on, then you can select your channel, which is drum rack, and then we can select one of the samples as input. So we want the kick as input. Now you can see it's receiving input. And just to exaggerate it for you guys, the threshold is basically at what volume of the kick it will start ducking the audio. So you can see that in action there. And the ratio is basically how much it will reduce the audio after that signal. So say our synth is playing at 6 dB, it'll reduce it to 2 dB if the ratio is 3. So this should be exaggerated, I think. Yeah, that's really exaggerated. So let's just do something like, I don't know, maybe 2.5. It still sounds like a bit too much, so. Okay, so. Okay, and now I'm going to switch to audio, so there's no delay in the samples. And just show you guys kind of what we've got here.